Hello, everyone. Welcome to the itracks webinar. We would like to make the presentation as interactive as possible. As questions come up, please enter them into the chat area of the GoToWebinar platform. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. My name is Garnette Weber. I am one of the co-founders of itracks. Thanks for joining us for our second session of Expanding Your Horizons webinar series. Today, we will be talking about online qualitative project planning, design, and execution to create value, specifically related to telephone and video in-depth interviews and video focus groups. Presenting will be my colleague Candace Northey and myself. I'd like to introduce Candace. After graduating from the University of Saskatchewan with a Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology, Candace joined itracks, and I have had the pleasure of working with Candace for the past 15 years. Candace has worked in quantitative research, quality control, and software as a service roles. In 2012, she took the leadership role with managing our software as a service team at itracks. Candace has a passion for helping clients create amazing online research experiences. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to begin with a poll. We'd love to learn a little bit more about the types of online research experiences that you have had. So you should see a poll pop up on your screen, and if you can indicate which experiences you've had, that will help us to understand a bit more about our audience. All right, I'll just give everyone a couple more seconds to vote here. All right, and we will share the results here. Let's show the poll here. I'm not sure. Okay, so we've got 38% do web-enabled telephone interviews, 48 online video, 33 online video focus groups, 25 text-based, and 50% online discussion boards. Thanks, everyone. Okay, moving on. So there's many different components for planning your study, and I'm going to touch base on the software aspects of that choice. And then Candace will go more into the other design and planning considerations. So this particular webinar, we are focusing on video and telephone in-depth interviews. So the video with the streamed video interview and screen sharing, telephone IDIs, which would have a telephone connection as well as an online media view, and video chat, which would be a streamed video with online media view. So the key considerations when selecting a technology are consider the study methodology, obviously. So different studies will have different needs and objectives, and obviously will have different considerations. So if you need to go in depth and you have very sensitive information, that might be more conducive to an in-depth interview methodology, where if you have a group of people that you're hoping to achieve some type of consensus or collaboration, the focus group with numerous people interacting simultaneously would be a preferred method. Different moderators also have different styles, and their preferred style may be more conducive to one methodology or another. The user engagement varies in each of these methods, as well as the reporting. So I am going to go through each of the different methods and go in more depth on these two items. All right, with the phone in-depth interview, I have a short video demo of how this would work. Stop playing here. All right, so the client observers can hear the interview taking place, and they can talk privately amongst one another in a back room. Typically, the moderator would appoint a point person in the back room during the interview, and as they hear the interview take place, they may have different points that they want to bring up with the moderator. So this would show the a researcher, the moderator on the left, as well as a observer on the right here. And so the right, the moderator and the observer are chatting back and forth, and the back room is directing specific probing comments or areas that they would like the moderator to go into more depth. And once the moderator receives that, they can then probe in more depth in the main room, private from the observer discussion. Once the interview is done, they hang up or end the interview, so that will keep all of the information secure so that the participant can no longer access that confidential information. And the moderator can download the audio file from the phone, or they can order a transcript, and they would receive an email once that transcript is ready, and they can go back into the software to download the transcript. And so this would be the typical reporting, the audio file and the transcript from a phone IDI. Comparatively, the video chat is much different. Obviously, you're having that real-time video feed, including the audio. And this would be the moderator's interface. They can, the participants may use a mobile app, although there is a preferred and more stable internet, typically with a desktop or laptop experience. We'll show you here. This would be the moderator's interface. They're interacting. They have control of the users, and they can click on the various stimuli or exercises on the right to then bring those up in the main room so that other users can view those. So you'll see that here, the moderator is bringing up a mock website. Now we're seeing the participant experience. So the participant is going to see the media displayed by the moderator and then only the video feeds of the other participants. Here, a poll is being shared so they can provide feedback on the stimuli that was displayed. And also in the video chat, I wanted to make a note that the observer would also see these screens here. So I'm going to show next more depth on the observer experience. So during the focus group, the observers are going to be able to see all of the video feeds and hear the audio, but if they want to make contact with the moderator, they would do that through this observer chat area that we've blown up here. So they can have typically a point person from the back room would then give feedback to the moderator to be able to direct them on areas of interest or that might need more probing. Next, we have the Videoidi experience. This is a new platform that itracks has released late last year, and there's a number of different features that really create a fantastic user experience. So this would be the participant view. The participant would see any media here that the moderator is sharing. They would see a video feed of the moderator and then themselves. Then we would also have they can also have a chat area in along the right. They can choose between video or chat and then have a chat discussion, maybe if they're having any audio connection issues, and then they would still have the media view there. Next, we'll show what the moderator would see. So the moderator is going to see the participant in the main area, the moderator below, the video feed of themselves, and they would see a mosaic. If there's multiple clients in the back room, they would see the mosaic of those video feeds. The nice thing about this platform is that it gives a lot of flexibility. You can see here that they can toggle the volume of the participant and the back room. So if they did want to touch base and turn down the volume of the participant and go and have a more in-depth discussion in the back room, or perhaps have a post-project briefing, they can then just toggle the volume up so that they can have that in-depth discussion. And then if they want to toggle that volume down to allow a focused discussion with the participant, they're able to do that as well. All right. Now I'll show you a quick video clip here. So we have the 3 different views, and we're going to show the observer experience here. So the observer is going to see the participant, the moderator, the other videos of the observers, and here they can communicate directly with the moderator through a text area as well, so that they can send those queuing messages into the moderator during the course of the interview. And then here I have a reporting example. So I was able to actually conduct a in-depth interview project with some of our clients. And so these clients have agreed to share this information. And so we have a couple of clients that have done in-depth interviews, and then we use the platform, and this would be an example of a reporting output from a video in-depth interview.
There is something to be said for sort of that, like, I'm facing you, we're, I'm giving you a glass of water, like we're together face to face in a room. However, on the flip side of it, when it's a streaming situation, I'm with you in your office, or I'm with you in your house, or I hear your kid, talking, in the next room. So you also get some personal connection in that way that's different from the connection that you would get in person.
Person is great. Again, it's a lot more expensive. Sometimes it can be a little more intimidating or intrusive for somebody. Like it's harder to get somebody to agree to sit down with you than it is to get them to interact with you, but do it through a computer. So it just provides a little bit more of a screen or boundary that I think it makes it more, it makes it better, I think, for the respondent.
All right, so just touch on a couple more in-depth details on the reporting differences. So the video chat, where it's a video focus group taking place, the output would be a screen recording of the main room. So everything in the main room here and the video feeds of the participants would be included. It wouldn't include the backroom chat. And with the Videoidi, there's actually a individual feed, and if the participant has an HD camera, it can be at a very high quality. So here we can have 720p, and the Videoidi, it will record at 60 frames per second and a lot more data per second and 2-channel audio, where the video chat is at 19 frames per second and a little bit smaller data and 1-channel audio. So if you really need those high quality video outputs, Videoidi would provide that for you. And that's where the advantage of having the individual HD video feeds is that you can have scalable quality. So especially you want to be able to display this video on a large TV screen or a large monitor, having that high quality video is going to create a much higher quality output. And then also having those individual feeds is really important if you're doing any facial analysis and other types of video analysis that would be helpful. Another option for your reporting is to use itracks video clipping and editor. So in this, you can view a video and create a highlight reel. So I'll just show you here. You can create a clip, start and end point.
I would say for the support materials on the website, in the bioprocess journey, as well as the product written by scientists, referencing peer review documents that talk about which products are being used and where. Ideally, references that are from the past 6 months to a year, so fairly recent publications that really help in that capacity.
And so they've created that tag, and they can create a label for the tag. and save it for the report quotes. They can then filter and then drag those clips that are important for the report quotes, and then create a highlight reel that could then be dropped into their PowerPoint presentation or other reporting tool. I mentioned that we did some research with researchers, and we asked, how does video IDI compare to phone IDI? And participants chose video IDIs as moderately or significantly better for participant engagement, quality of reporting deliverables, quality of insights, and understanding the participant. And they chose phone IDIs as moderately or significantly better for ability to connect easily, price, willingness to participate, and audio quality. So here we have a comparison, and on the left we have a number of areas we're comparing. So from an ease of use, the phone IDI would be the easiest in that the system will actually call them, and then there's simply a link they can click for the media view. It is secure in that the media view would no longer be accessible once the phone connection was no longer available. The download requirements, so for the phone and video IDI, there is no download required, and the video focus groups, because itracks currently uses Adobe Connect for the actual video streaming part of the video focus group, there is a download required, but just a sneak peek in September 2020, this should improve, it should change. There is a higher level of technology and high-speed internet required for the video focus groups and video IDIs. And for the video IDI, you would also require a modern web browser. For the media sharing, those can take place in all of the platforms. All of the platforms automatically record the video or audio output. And the reporting output differs. The audio would be provided with a phone IDI and transcript if appropriate. The video IDI will have that single feed participant video. And if you did need a video screen share, if that was part of your exercise, that would also be recorded. And then the video focus group records anything in that main room, including the video feeds and any media displayed. And I just wanted to touch on a couple of the use applications for each of the platforms. We see a lot of physician studies preserving that anonymity with phone IDIs. It's also used with seniors or people with limited internet, or situations where there's sensitive topics and they don't want to have that face disclosure. Video IDIs are really common for usability testing or web intercept studies. Dan will be going into those more next week in our Expanding Your Horizons series. It's also great when you want to have that body language where you need that single feed video recording. And the video focus groups are great when a study, perhaps a historical study, was done in person and you're trying to most closely replicate that in-person experience. It's great when the people are geographically dispersed or when you are creating a consensus building environment. All right, and next we're going to move to Candace.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen here, so just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to be going to more of the logistical considerations that you might need to take into account when doing a online project, either using video IDI, phone IDI, or video focus groups. So I've put together as my first item here to talk about is just some timeline considerations that you're going to have to take into account in order to have appropriate timelines for your study. So the first thing I say is training requirements. So first of all, you want to make sure that if you've never used the software before, that you have some training on the software, either through self-training or organizing the training with, for example, a member of your team at itracks in order to get you up to speed on the software. And you might want to allow for some testing internally as well, just so you have a full comfort level within the software. Usually a one-on-one training will take about an hour. And you want to be doing it about a week before your actual groups or interviews run. We don't like to push them out too far, otherwise you might not be retaining by the time that you actually are running your project. And then also you might want to consider some training for your clients and ask them and try to assess what their comfort level is with technology. I realize that some people have different levels of ability to access certain things on machines, especially if they're working within certain networks. We have a lot of people working from home remotely, and so things like VPN, ability to download, all that are things that you want to take into consideration. Maybe just do plan for a test with the client, and just test the computers and make sure the components are working. You also want to ask how familiar your clients are with online research. A lot of clients out there have done online research, so you just want to check with that as well. And things like, have you done something like this before? If so, who with, etc. You also want to take into consideration technology and system requirements for your clients, but also for your participants. So if you are requiring your participants to do something unusual, or if you're working with a group of people that might not be as familiar with certain pieces of software like using video, etc., you might want to set up a time for them to have tech checks prior to their interviews or focus groups as well, and build that into your timeline. Of course, the just main study logistics, like the timing of your research, when to get your stimuli, all that type of thing will have to be taken into consideration, as well as if you're getting homework assignments done. So if you need participants to test out products or do just collages and stuff at home beforehand, you'll want to take that into consideration. And then your recruitment process. So what method of recruitment are you using? Recruitment is fairly similar for online versus offline, but you do have some online recruitment you can leverage more easily when you are doing online research. And you also want to consider if you're doing rescreening, articulation, reminders, that type of thing, and build those into timelines. And then your project and user setup time. Now, one thing that you might not be as familiar with, and depending on what you've used in the past and so on, but in-person groups, you don't necessarily have to like set up users and send out email invitations and reminders. So if that might be something you might want to put into your timelines as well, just kind of learning that setup process, and then also getting your people set up and sending out their reminders and that type of thing. Typically, I can tell you for user setup, you're gonna probably want to have your user set up a day or two beforehand, and then get your tech checks done at that time, and then go ahead and send out reminders in the day of the research. You also want to account for a dry run, and it's something I really recommend. So set aside or plan to set aside some time to test the media in your project. And this is particularly true for video focus groups. At this time for video focus groups, someone from iTracks has to load that media for you. So we just like to have a dry run, usually a day to a couple hours before your actual first focus group or interview, depending on what you're doing, just to make sure that you, as a final run through, to make sure you know where the media is, you know how to access, you know how to show it, and that type of thing, that everything's right. And then, of course, based on what Garnette had just said, allow for whatever time you need for reporting. So if you need to run transcripts, account for that time. If you need to clip and code, account for that time as well. So to the recruitment part. So I always like to mention some things you do want to ask during recruitment. Not everybody has done this type of research, and sometimes you're going to be working with panelists that might not necessarily have done focus groups, let alone video focus groups. So you just want to make sure that they are the right people and that they have what is needed for the research. So if they're doing a video IDI or a video focus group, of course, an obvious question is, do you have a webcam? If it's a video focus group, in addition to that, ask if they're allowed to download items on their computer, because if they aren't allowed to download the software, then they're not going to be able to participate. Are you comfortable sharing your opinions within a closed research session? So there's a technology, but there's also the comfort level of people and seeing themselves on video that you have to consider. So it's always good to really be clear about what it is and ask if they're really comfortable with, you know, sharing their opinions and seeing themselves on video. More and more, I think now that we have a lot of people using different types of applications to keep in touch with friends and family while they're staying at home, we are really seeing more and more people more accustomed to seeing themselves on video, but it's still always a good thing to ask. And then also, do you have a quiet place to participate from? This is something that you might want to reiterate in invites and that sort of thing. But one of the things you don't want to have is to have a really distracted participant. So just making sure right off the bat that they have a place to set aside time and without distractions and so on, can be really important. And then also with recruiting participants, make sure the participants have the right info. So set them up for success, essentially. Give them details on where and how to expect their login info from. Mention if they're going to be called ahead of time to do any technical checks. Let them know that they might need to start early just so they can make sure they get on and everything's set up in advance. Let them know of any pre-project homework they should complete, any additional materials they might require, like a pen and a paper, a specific product. And this last item here is something I'll touch on later, but this is something that's good to mention as well, invitations. So kind of set those expectations early, reiterate them with every touch point that you can give them. Now, the one thing I want to mention is here is that you do have the ability to schedule people automatically within the itracks software. So any of our real-time products, you have the ability to turn on scheduling, which allows you to move right from a qualitative project or right from a quantitative project into online qual project. So if you have an online screener, for example, you can set it up so people are redirected right after they screen into the software, and they're scheduled. A couple things to note about the scheduling is that participants will get time slots based on what the moderator has indicated they are available for. They can also sign up for standby slots, and they will often, depending on how things are set up, will get an email as soon as they sign up for a slot. The moderator also will get an email saying that somebody has joined a session, and so you'll get that. And as I mentioned, you can also do standby. So if somebody doesn't show up, you can always try to do the standby in like a video interview and that sort of thing. So just making it a little bit easier logistically for your recruitment. You can, however, do more standard recruitment where you have your recruiter call or just schedule more manually and then load them into the system as well. The other thing to note is that we do have automated tech checks for some of our software. So for our Videoidi software in particular, as soon as they come into the platform, either registering via a link that you send them or after they choose a slot in their schedule, there is an automated tech check that can happen when they come up, just to make sure that it's working and that their audio and video works and that their browser has all the settings that they need to conduct the research. You can also arrange for personalized tech checks. And personalized tech checks are really important for groups of people that might not be as tech savvy. So for example, seniors, people that you need confirmation that they have it. So if you are kind of really needing to make sure that this person can get there on time and have everything working, we can do personalized tech checks, or if you need them to do any activities. So if you're wanting to participate in the screen share and you want to make sure that they can do that. If there's anything else unusual that you need them to just make sure that they can do when the group is running and not have interruptions during the actual group or interview, that's where you do the personal checks. And the personal tech checks are actually a tech support person calling out usually a day or two ahead of time to get people tested to make sure that they have everything they need and so on and so forth. I do want to reiterate too that with our video IDIs and our video focus groups, at this point in time, we do have a tech person in the group with you as well. So even if for whatever reason they miss that tech check, we can, there's going to be somebody there to help them 30 minutes ahead of time. We open all of our video IDIs and video focus groups 30 minutes ahead of time in order to have everything set up and ready to go in advance of your interview or focus group. That being said, even if you have 1 or 2 participants as a tech person that are having issues, that can kind of block up the whole situation. So you just want to make sure that if you feel that your group of participants might not, be as tech savvy, it's just good to have those tech checks done ahead of time in advance of the 30-minute mark. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is just designing your questions. So a couple points to consider is you want to consider the length of your moderator guide. IDIs are typically 60 minutes or less, so 30 to 60 minutes are the average length of either phone or video IDIs. And then online focus groups are usually around 90 to 120 minutes. So that will really dictate how many questions in your guide. But there's more people in an online focus group. So, and usually one of the things you have to consider is that people are going to be taking turns to answer those questions. So that kind of leads to a few less questions than, you would be able to do in the 120 minutes with one person. You also want to consider how many people you have in your focus group. If you have 3 people, you're going to get through a lot more questions than if you have 6, 8 people. You also want to account for technology. So are there exercises that rely on technology? So are you presenting like a whiteboard survey that they have to fill out or mark up? Anything that's going to take a little bit of time just to make sure that everyone's seen and you're getting that information collected and so on. You also want to account for media playback, reading through any items if you have to display certain items and talk through it. Those things are all going to take time to go, or just go through a slide deck. Those things have to be accounted for as well. And then, as I mentioned, people might need to take turns in a focus group situation. So I'll talk a little bit about this more when I talk a little bit about engagement in a bit here, but that's something you want to take into consideration. So you're probably going to get through less questions because you have to wait and direct people to take turns. I also want to talk about including exercises. So one thing that was noted to me is that there isn't the same flow of conversation sometimes that happens in in-person groups that does with video groups. So to make sure that people are engaged and in the research, sometimes it's just good to include some exercises. And there are some advantages to doing online research in terms of the types of exercises you can do are a little bit different than what you can do face-to-face. And the big one I find that is really advantageous is just the ability to conduct electronic polls with a group of people in a focus group. This includes open-end polling, so there is that ability to have an open-end polling as well as single choice and multiple choice polls. And you get auto-summing and sharing, and then often a report that you can get back after. So you're not having to tally while the group's running and then put your results together from there. You also have the ability to do screen sharing. So that's just something that if you're exploring online content, it's nice to be able to screen share in an online environment. And then, of course, you can post videos and media in varying types and control that playback often. And then I also say, but what about? So there are some exercises that are a little bit harder to do digitally that you would do in person. And things like art projects and collages. I always kind of tell people, like, not everything has to be digital. You can still get people to do those art projects and collages at home, and then either email it to you or use a discussion board as a homework portion of your study. So prior to, I'm seeing more and more clients do this where prior to video interviews in particular, they might get them to do homework for a week or whatever and kind of do some in-home testing or do art projects and get them to load those projects into a discussion board so you have them in a certain location. There are some options too for things like survey options for markup exercises. A lot of clients find that they can just replace those kind of pen and paper items with things like polls. And also you can just get people to like write things down and show it on their screen too. So once again, kind of going back to like, not everything has to be digital, but it's nice to have it there, I realize. The other thing I want to show you quickly is you can also use focus group breakout rooms for markup activities. And this is something we just recently started just kind of doing. And so I'm going to play a video here. This is an example of a focus group that, this is the same focus group that Garnette had shown you before. And this is the moderator view. And the moderator is going to show people a piece of media and ask them to mark it up and write on it. Now, one of the things the moderator did is they moved everybody into their own individual breakout rooms, so they're not actually seeing each other's markups. She's also in advance asked them to choose a specific color within the palette that's available to them and assign them. So some participants have been told to use the blue marker, some participants have been told to use the green marker. And you can see on the side there, she's moving from room to room just to see what they are saying. And then she can move everybody back into the main room from there. So that's kind of an individual exercise. The other option is you can do a collaborative exercise. So if you keep everybody in the main room, I meant to play it. So if you keep everybody in the main room, once again, in this case, the moderator has asked everyone to use their own individual colors so you can more easily differentiate who is who. And you can see, this is the participant view here. You have a participant that's doing some markup, and they can see the markups of other participants in real time, and the moderator can see the markups as well from there. So there's a few people, and then this has been sped up a bit, so it's obviously it might take a little bit more time than what we're seeing, but they can type on here and so on. And then one thing to note is that as a moderator, you do have the ability to save this as a PNG file. So there is a PNG output that you can save this as afterwards. And this is just the observer view, just to show you that too. So if you remember back to what Garnette had shown you, this is where the observers were talking, and they can hear, of course, and so on. Now, so far I've been talking about like things to think about when you're planning your research, just some considerations and strategies. I now want to kind of talk about during the research. So I always tell people that I work with that there's a lot of skills. If you've never done online research, there's tons of skills that you just use in your in-person research that you can really easily bring online. And just don't forget to do them. I know it needs more of a reminder for like text-based research, but you want to make sure that you're building things like building rapport and warm up with your guide and all that participant management stuff that you do in face-to-face groups. That all applies to online research. But you just do want to remember that there is some conversation flow items to consider within video focus groups. In particular, the fact that everyone's on their own feed, there's not as much eye contact as you would have if everyone's in a group together. So you just want to make sure that you are kind of keeping people as engaged as possible, either as a moderator, really probing people a lot, getting them to asking them to respond to each other, etc. You might also want to consider some of the polls and exercises we're looking at just to increase a little bit more engagement. And then, you can also tell them to bring things ahead of time. And this is just like a really easy way to say like, hey, we're going to be talking about this product. Can you bring this product from your fridge? Or we're going to be, you know, wanting you to do XYZ. Just, you know, can you write this up ahead of time? Or just bring a pen and paper and keep notes. So, you know, if we do miss you or you want to respond back to somebody, you can easily do that because you have that in front of you. And then just in terms of managing the conversation, I know I've mentioned this beforehand, but you'll definitely want to call on people individually. A nice way to do this is to say like, raise your hand if you've ever done this. This can also be done through electronic polling, and a lot of my clients do that. They'll say, okay, I'm just going to put up the poll, and then I'm going to choose who to call on based on the responses to the poll. It is noted by a number of people that you do have to call on people and get people to take turns, because with the video and audio, it's really hard to hear if people are talking over each other. So that's something that you might want to make as part of your housekeeping when you're introducing and that sort of thing, just to say, these are the rules, this is what I'll tell you. Some moderators also say, you know, when I say stop, everyone has to stop. Those types of things are really important, so you're getting the output you need. And then handling the background. I think Braun, when Garnette had played her video earlier, she really touched on this. The background's actually a little bit easier with online research because you don't have to physically pass notes. It's also automated, so there's very little room for error for your observers to ever talk to your participants, but they still have the opportunity to talk to each other. They still have the opportunity to talk to you. And if your clients are really engaged like that, a lot of clients really like to move online because they can have additional engagement. We also have some clients that really do customer immersion via the back room and get and run kind of like their own mini focus groups in the back room with their clients as a participant focus group is going on. And so the observer moderator communication is a little bit easier. And because there's automation, there's no way for the observers to ever interact with the participants. And that's all I had for today. Hopefully that helped. We'll leave it open for questions for everybody.
Great, thanks, Candace. We have some questions that have been entered. Please feel free to send your questions into the question area of the GoToWebinar chat. So to get us started, Candace, are you able to accommodate different languages in the platforms?
Yeah, so our Videoidi platform right now is just available in English. All of our other products do have many different languages. Our board product has like 20 languages. Our chat and phone IDI products have, I think, 10 or 12. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. And the plan is for Videoidi to have as many languages in the near future. We're just putting it into full release, and then once that happens, and as well as having some server drops internationally, just to make sure that we can really accommodate international work, we just want to make sure that's all in place before adding those additional languages. Video focus groups do have multiple languages as well. However, our tech support is offered in French and English, so that's just another consideration. We can sometimes accommodate Spanish as well. So yeah, so at this point, yes, but I guess is the answer.
Great. How many client observers can you accommodate in the platform?
There's actually no real limit to client observers. We do recommend doing a smaller group just because they are able to engage in that back room. It's sometimes best just to say, like, maybe just bring in your key people. But at this time, there's not really a limit per se. So the softwares don't have an upper limit. But just from a management standpoint and for moderator sanity, if you do have a lot of people, you just want to maybe assign a spokesperson from that observer team. And sometimes it's just, if there's a lot of people joining, it can be a little bit, I don't want to say messy in the back room, but you might want to just give your clients a number. But in terms of the actual software, there is no limit.
Great. Okay. And is there an additional charge for a personal itracks technical support person during a video focus group?
Not during the group. So during video focus groups, that is part of the additional cost. What we would charge for is the personal tech checks ahead of time if those were required, but tech support is available for all of our video products at this time with no additional fees.
Great. Is it possible to include a simultaneous translator for clients in the back room?
Yes. I actually just finished a project last night with a simultaneous translator in the back room. But yes, you can definitely arrange that within the video focus group software. We'd have to figure out the best way to do it in a Videoidi, but video focus groups, yeah, we have everything set up to do that as needed.
Great. Can you clarify the changes for September 2020? Is that you will no longer be using Adobe Connect? And do you want to take that one, or do you want me to, Candace?
I'll let you take that one.
Okay, so yes, so itracks, we currently have our Videoidi platform that, as I mentioned, it has a number of great features, and with one of the very popular attributes being that there's no downloads required. And so we are expanding that to allow for groups of participants, and that'll be coming later this year. And so then we'll have the option of using either, depending on the research needs, but we're expecting that most projects will switch over to the to itracks' new video focus group platform, which will be released later this year. Here's a great one for you, Candace. What types of exercises have you seen to be most useful?
Sorry, as I mute. It's really dependent on what you need. I would love to say, like, I think that X exercise is most useful. It's really depending on what you're needing from your client. I do like the projective exercises personally. I feel that they do give a little bit of depth to your research. So things like getting people to do things at home and collaging and that sort of thing is really adds something to your research, especially if you're doing it as like a homework leading up to the research. During the research, I do find that polls are really engaging. It does kind of keep people coming back into it. So if they're drifting away and they're just not really listening, then you'd be like, okay, I'm going to show another poll here about this, and then that kind of brings them back into focus. But overall, I can't say I have a favorite because it really just depends on what you're needing as the end product for your research.
Okay. Are there any drawbacks to using a system that doesn't require a download?
The only drawback is that then you are really you're really reliant on system settings, and that's the only drawback. So I do know that oftentimes if we have issues with our non-downloadable or non-download products like the Videoidi, and it's really just the Videoidi that this is a concern in, you just want to make sure, we always have to check to make sure if people are having problems that they have like their webcam settings on their browser working and that type of thing. Usually the troubleshooting is pretty easy and it just requires like a browser change or a refresh to just get it going for the interview. It can be a little bit trickier for a moderator that's having issues, but we have more time to work with the moderators on that too, I guess. So those are the only drawback, I guess, is just that like you do have to rely on people's settings on their browser then. But what we use for our video IDI is on almost all modern web browsers. And I'm finding that as we use it more and more, our software team's really adapting to what we're seeing very easily. So we're not finding as many issues with it as having to get people to download. So
great. Do you recommend providing any expectations for participants in terms of how they should, their appearance during video focus groups? And yeah, do you ever provide direction on that, especially when it's including the video recording?
Yeah, that's a tricky one because you know, you're doing it in people's homes and they're obviously comfortable, you know, where they're at. I do know that it's important to some people, especially if you do have like if you're requiring a really high level video output afterwards, it might be more of a consideration than if you're just running off transcripts and notes, right? I do know that I have seen everything with regards to what I've seen in video IDIs and focus groups. And we've had to tell people to like put shirts on and things like that. But I would say if it is something that's important and that your client is expecting to see a certain level of professionalism in that recorded video and so on, definitely mention it. I have had people say like, please tidy up your room that you're in, make sure you're in uninterrupted space. Most people do take the consideration to make sure that they look presentable, but just, you know, reiterate that you are going to be on camera and that it would be good to have a non-distracting place to be in and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and other tips I've seen are asking people not to be perhaps eating or drinking during the video, or asking for direct lighting so that the participants are able to easily be seen. But yeah, all those tips can be set up.
A change in lighting is an easy one to ask for. Like, I know that from a tech support perspective, a lot of times people will say, oh, it's really hard to see your face. Are you able to move the light? Especially in IDIs when you're working with high level, high quality videos and you're needing to use those clips. We'll often ask people to change their lighting if we can't see them.
Great. Do you charge extra for client observers? And I can touch on. No, there's no extra charge. We're happy to host groups with the client observers. That's great. Another question here. If you require larger groups, do you recommend text chat over video?
Yeah, so video chat I wouldn't recommend. I always tell people a max of 8. Just because you get beyond that and you have the moderator feed, you literally have 3 lines of video feeds, and that's kind of taking up the whole screen. And if you're showing any media or anything on top of that, those feeds get smaller and smaller. So because of that, and also because you're taking turns, it's going to take a lot longer to get through a group with 10 or 12 people. Whereas with text chat, obviously the video feeds and being able to, you know, that type of thing isn't as important. Everyone's typing at the same time when they're responding, which is kind of nice because you can usually get a few more questions out, and then you can just manage a lot more people in a text chat than you can a video chat as a moderator.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. We are getting to the end of our session today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I do want to note, if you can just switch the slide, Candace, next Thursday, we will have part 3 in our webinar series. We'll be hosting a session. Dan Weber, our CEO, will be doing a session on text chat focus groups, and he'll be focusing on real-time recruitment and live event research and web intercepts. So please join us next Thursday, same time, noon. EDT, and we look forward to having everyone join us. Thank you so much for taking the time. We will be sending out the recording and the slides. We've had lots of requests, so we'll send those out in a follow-up email. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out and contact us. We'd be happy to discuss your upcoming research or any questions that you have about online qualitative research. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.